Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for the invitation. The presentation's title is really The Dream of a Region or a Region of a Dream. And you can find it also printed in your booklets. When I was asked to deliver the presentation, I was asked to talk about the image of how I see the future of the Cultural Capital of Europe program. And I can summarize, of course, in one sentence, but when I start working on a topic, the image starts to be more complicated and complicated sentences keep coming out. I think if we can plan what direction we are heading to in the future, even in an experimental phase, we need to be able to explain why this genius idea was born from Gyula Porga, the mayor of the city, at least 10 years ago, for the second attempt to win this title. I was sitting in my office back then in Brussels, and we used to have discussions, although he never came to visit in Brussels, but we had daily discussions, and I'm very proud of that. And in one of the discussions, Gyula told me that it was announced again, the program for the Cultural Capital of Europe, and he thought he would like to apply again. There was a history of that before when finally Pécs won that title back then. Veszprém actually is the Cultural Capital of Europe, but maybe it's not enough if only the two of us think about it, and it's good to have an external document that proves our thoughts. So why was it so natural for us that Veszprém must become the cultural capital of Europe and also appraised and appreciated by external stakeholders? It had a very practical reason, and we thought that Veszprém has always been in the situation that its geographical position, historical role, predestined Veszprém to be an category a premium category presence and role. But it has never been validated. First, during the Árpád era, in the 13th century, Péter Csák's troops burned down the university and destroyed the castle. Then after that came an uplifting era, but that was interrupted by the Turkish wars when for 150 years the city was devastated and it was in the front line of the battles. Then came a slow uplifting period again, a slow growth period, and by the time the city built itself up, the industrialization in the 19th century avoided Veszprém. Veszprém connected slowly to this, and then by the time Veszprém would have connected to this new era, there came the Second World War. The Second World War was also damaging Veszprém. Then came the 56th revolution that had huge losses here in Veszprém. Veszprém resisted for a very long time, and they wanted to take revenge, and headed by János Pap, who was an ambitious mass murderer, wanted to make Veszprém a 100,000 population city. But in the end, thank God, it remained a 70,000 population city. But all these changes have restructured the city, and it put an obstacle to the democratic transition. And now, again, we are in a situation where we know that Veszprém is capable of much more, but we need a jumping plank so that we can reach the heights. And we thought that the Cultural Capital of Europe title will give us a good opportunity, that Veszprém and the Bakony-Balaton region should be repositioned because due to the public administrative changes, Veszprém exited is uplifted the county, as this is a city with county rank. It's not part of the political decisions, and it seems like Veszprém has disappeared a little bit And the ring that was built, the ring road that was built around, made it possible not only to avoid the city, but the city was avoided a little bit by the new waves. There were some leaders who said it's okay this way, we don't need to have big developments in the city, we don't want to be in the middle of the hustle and bustle. We didn't really agree with that, and we thought that this title would give us the opportunity for Veszprém to step back in space in a positive light, in a positive role, to uplift its importance as a driver of settlement cooperation. We who are here, I think we all agree that this region has beautiful natural characteristics. It's very exciting. Cultural, historical traditions are rich, and it is just as valuable as other Western European regions such as Provence, Catalonia, or other regions in Hungary. From Hungary, people are going there to visit, and external foreigners could also come to visit here. And to credibly announce this and to credibly tell this to the whole of Europe, we need to step out in the European stage and show ourselves. This gives the great historical opportunity for cities in Europe to introduce themselves in Europe, because a lot of people in Western Europe think that Europe somewhere ends around Burgenland. That's where the eastern border of Europe ends, and beyond that, we only have nomadic people sitting on the horses without a saddle, and they speak languages that are unpronounceable. And this, for example, Maros Šefčovič, Slovakian person who has been a member of the European Commission since 2009, till this day, he's called Šefčovič instead of calling him Šefčovič, and they don't think it's embarrassing that they are not able to pronounce the Eastern European names. So we have to struggle with this, but at least the European Union gave us an opportunity to show ourselves, and they learned to pronounce at least my name and Gyula's name correctly. So Veszprém has fantastic capabilities and characteristics that predestine Veszprém to be the cultural capital of Europe. The per capita, the number of degrees per capita is the highest here, and the innovation spending of companies is the highest here in the country. Due to the university campus, it's a university city. It has a high value in higher education. It has 3 theaters, and literature, journals, magazines, opportunities in the cultural life are huge and exceed the financial framework of the city. And these characteristics uplift Veszprém into the limelight of Europe. So let's talk about the repositioning. I regularly suffer when they say that Veszprém is the county center of Bakony. I don't have a problem with Bakony, but Veszprém geographically is just as far from the Bakony as it is from Lake Balaton. And if we say that Veszprém is a county center around Lake Balaton, everyone thinks about summer, Lake Balaton, happiness. But if we say that Veszprém is the county center of the Bakony, we think about dense forests and cold, and we only go there in winter. So it has not such an attractive power when we name Veszprém this way. So for the region, also, it's important because Veszprém is the biggest city in this region, and it can be a driving force of the whole region. It should be the center of the Balaton region, Balaton County region. I don't have a problem with Bakony, but let's make it the Bakony-Balaton region, and Veszprém is the natural center of this. And I know that some mayors want to push out Veszprém, to push Veszprém out of the Balaton region, to make it disappear. But the situation is that it has been here for thousands of years, and its strategic mission is to be the organizational center of the region. And for that, we also need to have the vicinity of Lake Balaton and mention the vicinity of Lake Balaton and Bakony as well. In the literature and everywhere in history, we see the importance of this. And there has been a discussion about the heritage of this region and also about Veszprém's importance. And we want the country to notice that Lake Balaton is not only a holiday place, but it's a place of residence, a living space. And this is a region where people are living their everyday lives. They work here, they go to school there. They would like to have a normal environment and maintain this normal environment for themselves. And in this environment, in the non-holiday environment also, they can live an excellent life because this area can provide a much better quality of life than other regions in the country. It's not by accident that it has such an attractive force. Lake Balaton, with its rising real estate prices, the incoming population, is a strategic task for us also, for us who are thinking about the future development policy of the region. So the title of European Culture Capital gives us the opportunity to reorganize the city. Veszprém historically and traditionally has 20,000 people as its population. And then that population increased to 70,000, and now it's around 65,000. I'm waiting for the agreement of the mayor from the audience. So it's also true that those who know Veszprém know this and can see this. Just like all other mid-sized cities in Europe, it's surrounded by a ring of housing estates. And just like in other cities, creating a community and weak community bonds must be strengthened. This is just as important as any other urban development tasks. And coming from this aspect, in Veszprém also, we were given the opportunity that this series of programs we were able to use to attract those living in the housing estates, attract them to come into the downtown, and also to attract the downtown residents to go out in the outer city. That's why the Gyár area, the Gyártelep, is so attractive, such a fantastic area for community gatherings. The European dimension was self-evident for ourselves here in Veszprém. I think it's not a question that the identity of the city is linked with 1,000 strings to Europe, to the European culture, to the Western European culture. As the history of the city, this city was first European, then Hungarian, and Christianity appeared here sooner than the Hungarians. I think it's not a question if we can define what it means, the identity of Veszprém. So it is obviously a European city, and our goal is to show in the special Hungarian culture, in the European culture, and to take the European culture into the Hungarian culture, and to bring the specificities of the Hungarian culture and showcase it in Europe. And also create cooperations. We also wanted to set an example for the European Union, because in the program series, there were some regional cooperations previously. However, this huge regional cooperation is unprecedented. The historical characteristics are very important. This was the first bishopric here. We know that here in Veszprém was the first bishopric. It already existed when Saint Stephen I acknowledged it. This is the first place for higher education, but unfortunately in the 16th century it was destroyed. We know, although there are archaeologists who doubt this, but we who are not archaeologists, we know that the coronary mantle was embroidered here. This was the traditional seat of queens, and it's a very significant university center, one of the best university centers of Hungary. So these are the important elements that entitle us to call Veszprém the European cultural capital. So the mayor of Veszprém said that in 2010, let's make an attempt again. And this was a serious attempt, not like from the leaders before. It was the mayor's idea that there should be a regional cooperation, and Veszprém, with its 60,000 population, is a small city on the European scale, but in Hungary we can say it's a mid-sized city. And we are aware that it can happen that smaller cities win the Cultural Capital of Europe titles, and it happened before, but we knew back then that to have a realistic chance, we can only win if we have a strong regional cooperation, and that's where the Bakony-Balaton region idea came in, and we thought that we want a truly cooperating existing region, and we wanted to make an attempt to see whether we can really create the Bakony-Balaton region and their cooperation. And we wanted to see whether we can build a true community in the Bakony-Balaton region and whether we can make this cooperation real. Obviously, this required the region not only to consist of administrative units, but the everyday participation and the participation spirit we wanted to awaken among the citizens and the regions and the settlements. Those who are sitting here in the room, if you think about your family, if you think about your history of your family, you can prove that you have all settlements intertwined through marriages, schools, work relationships. So this is a region that is intertwined with all kinds of relations and connections, and there are very strong connections among the settlements. So since Veszprém and the Bakony-Balaton region is the second region that became, after Pécs, the cultural capital of Europe, we would like to thank Pécs, who were the first one who contacted us after the announcement of the results and invited us to Pécs to learn from their example. It's very interesting because the Hungarian public looks at Pécs as a failure in this program, but when I was responsible for the cultural policy in the European Commission, and when I saw Pécs as the cultural capital of Europe, I always saw Pécs mentioned as the best example of cultural capital of Europe. But the too much self-criticism in Hungary makes the public think in Hungary that Pécs was not so successful. But I think it was indeed successful. Maybe not as successful as Veszprém, but we could learn from their lessons. The most important lesson was with the infrastructural investments, because if there was a negative trait of Pécs being the European capital, cultural capital of Europe, there was this concert center and the Zsolnai quarter that were handed over and finished in 2010 and 2011, which was much later. So here, in case of Veszprém, we were focusing on the infrastructure investments having a smaller role and rather renovating old buildings and not building new buildings. So these are the results of the cooperation. I don't want to spend too much time on that. The 116 settlements started to cooperate, and in the co-financing system, there was a very close cooperation, and this was the first time when the regional cooperation had true participants. Everyone contributed financially also to the regional cooperation, and so there were no free riders. This was €1 per resident per year. In small settlements and in county centers, it was €2 per resident per year. Some settlements said that it was very difficult for them to pay it, but finally, eventually, everyone paid it and everyone participated in the co-financing cooperation. So let's see what are the tasks for the future. The question of legacy, how we can take this to the future, how we can continue. Europe is now tortured with the negative attitudes related to big events such as related to the Olympics, big festivals, and so on. Everyone immediately thinks about the destruction of the environment. What can we do with the legacy? How can you implement these events in a sustainable manner? We could see with the Paris Olympics, there was a very unique attempt to organize Olympics without burdening the environment too much in the future, and having a continuity for the efforts. In our program, we also try to implement the sustainability, because this is one of our most important horizontal conditions. And with the legacy also, we wish to provide the opportunity for ourselves and the municipalities cooperating with us for future further cooperation. In the development policy, we also want to cooperate, and in the cultural area as well. So this is the region that we are talking about, 116 settlements. The most northeastern is Csesznek, Bakonyaszlop. We have Várpalota, Inota, in the south, Somogyvár and Marcali, and in west, we have Szentgyörgyvár and Zalacsány. So this is a huge region. 200 and 250,000 people are included in this region. As I mentioned, 116 settlements. And for each European cultural capital, there is an opportunity, and we, from the very beginning, are trying to implement this to create a creative region for the future. What is a creative region? A creative region is a region where in the regional economic structure, the creative industry is dominant or fills a significant role. So, of course, the region's economic structure is not laid on the foundation of creative industry, but this is an important driving force in the economy. We will talk about the creative industry more in the future, but in the literature, there are two types of creative regions. One is a creative region that has an obvious center, which is usually an industrial center. And in the past decades, this industrial center took its role as a creative industrial center, preserving its dominant role, and this organizes the region. This is linked to a dominant big city. Manchester and Clermont-Ferrand is mentioned as an example, but we can mention Barcelona or Milan, for example, and Lombardy. So there, these are the obvious centers with very serious industrial traditions. The other type is where the natural characteristics and geographical characteristics provide the identity of the region, and the difference between the size of settlements is quite small. So there is a more balanced settlement structure, and the city center is not very dominant. Therefore, the partnership is given a much more important role, and the industrial characteristic is not so dominant either. Besides that, it's rather tourism, gastronomy, service industry, local values, local handcraft is what plays a significant role. I mentioned Firenze and Bruges and the related regions as examples for this type of creative region. It's not a question for me based on Veszprém's characteristics, that Veszprém belongs to the second type of creative region and can belong to this. It's not a very big city, although the biggest city in this region, but Ajka, for example, is half the size of Veszprém, and we can find smaller cities such as Várpalota, which is also similar size to Veszprém. We have Tapolca, Sümeg, we can list Siófok, for example, on the southern part, which which also have the power to organize the region. So they are suitable for partnership. What is the cultural and creative industry? There are a lot of definitions to this. The most general definition is that the creative industry includes activities that are protected by intellectual property rights. Such as innovations, patents, inventions, art works that are protected, that have registered trademarks or protected by intellectual property rights in the area of IT, design, fashion, or gastronomy, wine, food, is where the creativity shows, but these all belong to the creative industry. The task that is ahead of us, if we believe that this region can really be transformed into a creative region, and if we believe that this region can exist as a region, the first and foremost task is the infrastructural links and the difficulties of this. Everyone who lives here know exactly what I'm talking about. The roads are bad quality, the timetables are not harmonized, it's difficult to get from one point of the region for Bakony-oszlop or Csesznek to the other point, the other end of the region, to Somogyvár, for example. This is a one-day excursion, while it belongs to one region. The problems of the railway network also pose special problems. For example, from Budapest to Tapolca is only a little bit longer than 100 years ago. So we have a lot to develop in the railway area, and typical of Hungary that for 130 years we haven't been able to resolve the task of being able to go around by train around the whole Balaton, which would have such a huge tourism power. I know, for example, in Budapest, that tram number 2 has a huge attractive power in tourism. Imagine if families could just sit on the train in Siófok at 10 o'clock in the morning on a rainy day, and at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they would arrive in Siófok without changing, transferring, getting off the train, and they would be able to go around Lake Balaton. Unfortunately, we were not able to fight for this, and now I'm asking the audience also to take the initiative and help us with this. So what are the borders of this region? The Bakony-Balaton creative region. You see 2 or 3 colors here because there are 2 or 3 potential borders. The first one, obviously coming from my family history as well, is the Zirt, Veszprém, Balatonfüred, Balatonalmádi region, which is a micro-region, I think. So this works as one city. Of course, there are green areas between the towns. In the public administration, they are separate towns, but regarding the families' lives, regarding the organization of transport, this should be operating as one city. The second is the microregion bordered by Tapolca, where Veszprém's attractive power is really strong, but we can say that this region, such as the Eger Creek region and the eastern side of Bakony, obviously this could become a strong region, an intertwined region. And the third one is the light blue microregion, which is a little bit further, and from the point of view of identity, we can see that, for example, in Sümeg, they rather belong to the Zala region identity. So there the feeling of Zola Trianon is quite strong, and you can feel that in the everyday life as well. So from the aspect of identity, there's a looser bond, a looser link, but this is excellent, uh, an excellent opportunity to strengthen the bond here and the region. So I see in the control monitor that my time is up, so I will speed up a little bit. So I hope that this is not only a wish, but I hope that the mayors will be able to um, cooperate in the future. I hope that civil organizations, citizens will see imagination, they will see the opportunity, and let's undertake the sacrifice for cooperation, because there is no cooperation without sacrifice. Everyone has to give up something in order to be able to cooperate financially, regarding their free time. You need to invest free time, energy, and finances into the cooperation, but I trust that it will work out and we will be putting ourselves on the map on the long run in the European culture.